podcasters, and welcome once again to Sexplosion. My name is Caroline Chenier from CarolineChenierCoaching.com. I'm your coach on all things intimacy, relationships, sex, and superconsciousness. This is my podcast teaching you about how to sexually liberate yourself to be confident, spicy, and fun around intimacy and sex, along with learning about how to build a great foundation for a strong, long-lasting, and passionate relationship. This is unfiltered, uncensored, and unexpected. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about sex and healing today. We have Francesca Priestess from America with us, which is why it's a recording, whose work is in sacred sexual healing. And I'm going to be breaking the mold on this occasion, as I'm going to ask Francesca to tell us all about her business, how she got there, and how she can help you herself. So thank you so much, Francesca, for being with us. A massive welcome to Sexplosion.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to have this conversation. I think we're going to get really deep into some of the nuanced expressions of sexuality and how that actually can transform a human's life.
Yeah, exactly. I know that I know I'm going to be pretty quiet in this. I actually might have quite a few questions, but this is really interesting because you describe yourself also as a professional sex worker and dominatrix as well. So
yeah,
can you just tell us how, tell us about your business, what you do and everything, but then I want you to tell us how you got into all this and how you created your business.
yeah. So I name myself as like an erotic activist, a sexual revolutionary. But what I'm really doing is shepherding people through some of their most vulnerable, tender desires into places that are often kept in the shadows of themselves, of their own subconscious mind, and helping them see more of themselves in different ways through different lenses. And I often say we're integrating the sexual shadow into a light of truth so that they can become more of who they're authentically born to be. And so that manifests in a lot of ways in my work. I am very open about the fact that I'm a full service sex worker, that I am a professional dominatrix. I will professionally sub as a submissive to the right humans. Just last night, I spent 8 hours in the dungeon working with a newly married couple who was looking to explore non-monogamy for the first time. And so there's a way that my body becomes not only a channel of having these experiences, but also as like a playground and the practice arena to do things that we don't really get to practice unless we're with someone who we deeply cherish, deeply love, right? We're in a partnership, and that's where we make all of our mistakes. Like if we applied that kind of logic to any other arena of expertise, it would sound so dumb, right? Okay, learn how to make a beef bourguignon at the fanciest French restaurant and serve it to the most important person in your life on the first go. I mean, we would just never do that. But that's what we do with sex. And so my philosophy in this work is that hands-on sexual experiences, hands-on sexual learning is actually so important because you can't just talk about it. You can't just read about it. You have to do it. You have to get messy. And where my specialties and expertise come is in holding someone through the messiness of that learning process so that they can go into the world and have these divine experiences with their partners, with their husbands and wives, with all of the juiciness that they want in the world.
Well, listen, I would like you to come back again because what I've been searching for is somebody who's a sex worker and dominatrix. So I'd like you to come back and talk just about that one point because I'm fascinated by it, and I'm pretty sure other people would be as well because a lot of my audience are as fascinated as I am. So what I want to ask you now is, okay, so how did that all start? I mean, did you have a difficult time in your life first for you to realize all this? I mean, tell me how it worked for you.
Yeah, yeah. When I was 19 years old, I I actually had my first kinky dynamic, and I was in
How
my
old
first
are you?
19. I'm
Okay.
I'm in my mid 30s now. So,
Okay.
19 years old, I started my exploration. I had my first threesome when I was 17. So I
God,
just
that is incredible. My God, to think I waited till I was like, how old was I? I must have been about 48, something like that, 47, 48. But you know what it was? It's because I was suppressed. You know, I was
Mhm.
conditioned by my childhood, my religion. You know, is Catholicism. I don't practice it, but that's what I was, told. So that's why but you obviously didn't have that kind of upbringing, did you? Because it obviously you're very open.
So funny because I absolutely did have that upbringing. I was just born with this rebellious nature. So, one of my first memories of rebelling against the status quo was actually in church, sitting in the second pew with my mother and my sister, and the priest was talking about how wrong homosexuality was and basically shitting on gay marriage. And at that age, I'm 9, you think all adults can do everything, So I looked over, I remember, at the people around me and was like, aren't you gonna do anything? I knew at that age what he was saying, what the priest was saying was wrong. And when I noticed that no one was gonna do anything, and I had no power as a kid, I got up from the pew, walked and marched down the center aisle in protest and just waited in the back of the church. I was like, I'm not sitting through this. So this is the kind of energy that I've just had. I have no idea where it came from.
That
I
is
I
incredible because I didn't know what the hell the priest was talking about. Hang on just a second.
mm,
I'll cut that bit out. Um, because when I was in church, I had no interest and I didn't even listen to the priest. And I had Sunday school before that. So it was just, I was just dying for the day when I could just stop doing it all, which I did. And I didn't bother after that. But now you see, if I go to weddings or something like that, or I don't know, I almost went to a service, a Christmas service in France where I am now. And I was thinking, oh my God, and there's been christenings I've gone to and I've listened to the priest. I'm like, okay, so you're not even you're not even allowed to get married. I mean, they don't get married, but they do naughty things anyway, don't they? So
mhm.
so who are they? How are they qualified to even talk to us about relationships? That's what I think. And I'm like, it's a load of I don't know. I mean, I don't want to upset anybody in the audience, but you know, as far as I'm concerned, how can they possibly, talk to us about these things? And yeah, I don't, yeah.
It's why I love this work and why I think I really am why I want to have these sorts of conversations
Mm,
to normalize this
yeah,
work because what you
exactly.
these so there are lots of people who have opinions on things, but I mean, if you once you've been in the trenches with people and you've done it, then there's sort of like a substance to how I'm able to teach this, even with clients who just hire me for coaching services and things like that. But getting back to like, how did I get into this?
Mm,
Okay, so I really do believe that if I was born in a different era, someone, an elder woman in this lineage, would have seen me in my youth and just taken me under her wing. But we don't live in a society that says we value sex workers.
no, no,
Nope.
they don't.
So, what happened to me was when I was 19 years old, I had an extremely transformational sexual experience in which I felt like the whole room dissolved. I was in this blissful state of what I call like this pure whiteness. There was just, and it's almost like how Hollywood represents when you die. It's, it's
I know
that
what
it
you
was
mean.
yeah, it was that kind of, and I was 19 and I came back into the room and I looked at my partner and I'm confused, I'm disoriented, I don't know what just happened to me. And I'm looking at him thinking that he also experienced that. And he's like, I'm gonna go take a piss. And I was like, oh wow, we had very, very different experiences, which was even more confusing for me as a kid. And so growing up in New York City, I had access to a lot of spaces that I would say most of the world doesn't have access to. Meaning at like 23, I went to my first orgy.
How
I
did
just
you?
went to a sex party in the underground of New York City and I went alone, like a crazy
Bloody
person.
anything could have happened to you, Francesca.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have not only 9 lives, I easily have 20 something lives. Like,
You,
I swear to
you
God.
see, what happened to you is what happened to me when I was in my 40s and my sexual peak. You see, I did all of that. So I went to my first parties. I went to my first sex club. And I was like, people need to. That's why I do what I do, because people need to experiment with this stuff. I do lives every day on TikTok now, and I talk about taboo subjects. And I've been doing it 3 weeks now. So now people are starting to interact with me. It's great. I'm getting up to over 1,000 people watch me now. And yes, and the thing is, I'm like, and even like cuck holding or dogging or whatever. And I'm talking about it in my videos. This isn't live, this is on the videos. And I get so many people are saying this is disgusting, or not a real man wouldn't do that. And so actually one of my videos is now, well, what is a real man? Why is this not normal? If people don't want to have a vanilla kind of, that's what society dictates, isn't it? That it should be like this. No, it's like people dictate. Sorry, society and religion, whatever dictates, you should be stuck. If you love the person, you're not stuck with them, right? But you're with one person and that's it for the rest of your life. And I don't actually believe in that either, because you learn from different people. You grow up, you grow. You're not the same person in your 20s as you were in your 50s. So, it's I think it's perfectly normal. I'm now in my 50s with the love of my life. And I feel like now I've actually found the balance in my life, you know? So it's
Yeah.
incredible. It's
And
incredible.
what you're touching on too is this like there are so few pillars of society that will shepherd someone through this kind of self-exploration. I mean, sexuality harbors some of the most, I think I said before, like vulnerable, tender, wounded, traumatized parts of us. And what we do is we say, like, just go figure it out, like go.
We don't
And
get
what
taught
happens?
anything, do we? Nothing at school.
No,
We don't
no,
get taught emotions. We don't get taught about the erogenous zones, about the body, about. I
nothing.
mean, yes, the body, but not those parts of the body.
No, and what we get taught, if we do get taught any sex ed, is akin to like learning how to cook and only learning about food poisoning. Like that's how we get taught about sex.
Yeah, it's terrible, really.
It's terrible. So I got myself into lots of situations in my mid 20s that
No, you did.
were straight up harmful, right? I was trying to explore kinky dynamics. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. This was before podcasts, before there were books written. The only examples of non-monogamy or of some kinky dynamics that we had were the swingers, who were like the leftover hippies from the 70s who had the pineapple out on their balconies or whatever. It's like that was those were our role models. So
So
I
hang on,
just
hang on. So just picking up on that before we move on.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they would put a pineapple out on a balcony so that people know that they would do swinging.
That was the covert signal to the
Well, I
world.
didn't know that.
You would have a pineapple on your porch, or you would invite other couples over for dinner, and you would have like a porcelain pineapple on your
Right.
dinner party. And then the people who wanted to stick around knew what that
I
meant.
always wondered how, because the way it happened with me, it was all word of mouth, from the sex club. That's how it kind of escalated. So that is brilliant, actually. Have they
That was
stopped
like
with the
the
pineapples
seven.
now?
Yeah, because
Oh,
now it's normalized non-monogamy much more, but in the 70s and the 80s, that
much more
was the
liberal.
signal. Yeah, that was the signal. So I started my sex work just because people would say things like, "You're really good at this," particularly in kinky expressions. And they would start asking to receive experiences. And in all honesty, I just felt like I wasn't getting a whole lot out of those dynamics, other than I enjoyed the teaching aspect of it. I enjoyed watching someone go on their journey, but I enjoyed teaching through actually doing. So I started my sex work in exchange for services. I did that a lot.
What do you mean?
Come and do my laundry, and then I'll like torture your cock, something
No
like that.
way. That's fantastic.
Go do my grocery shopping. So I was really I was attracting service submissives, and those were my first kind of rounds of clients. And then I remember the first time I sucked a
So
dick
before you carry
for
on, can I
money.
just ask another question? Sorry, hold that thought.
Yeah.
How did you get those people? Did you advertise somewhere? What did you do?
No, and even right now, I don't advertise actually. Everything's been word of mouth, very similar to how you just said, like at the
Right,
club. I had people who had experiences with me and then would tell their communities, and then they're like, "Hey, can I get her? Can I get
right,
her
right,
link?"
right.
hmm
Sorry,
And I
carry on
liked
now.
it that way. And the truth was, I was living a double life. So I was also working a proper vanilla job and straddling both of these realms, which
You
was
must have been earning quite a lot of money though. That must have been a great earner for you.
it was a great time. It's a great time. I like.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what working in the corporate world did was actually create a veil of safety for me. And
Mm,
so
mm.
in my activism work now, I say, like, I've never been a survival sex worker. And we have to name that when we're talking with me. So I've had a different set of hurdles to get over that someone doing survival sex work maybe didn't have to, but they have plenty of other hurdles that I've never had to
So
been
when you say
through.
survival sex work, you're talking about people who are just on the line with money. They just have to earn money. That's
Yeah,
what you mean, isn't it? Okay. But
yeah.
you're choosing to do it. It's not,
I'm choosing
yeah,
to do it.
yeah, okay.
So the first time I sucked a dick for money was probably the biggest growth moment of my entire life. I make a joke that I say, 1 year in sex work is like 10 years of therapy because it brings up everything. It brings up everything. All of your wounds, all of your insecurities, all of your shame. I mean, just all of your authenticity, your imposter syndrome, every single fucking wound that people need to heal. Sex work brings it up, and it does it in a ruthless
Yeah, I
way.
was going to say quite brutal, right?
Brutal. I spiraled in shame for days because the truth of the matter was there's such a stigma against sex workers, particularly full service workers. And I realized, oh, I could never go back to being a woman who has not sucked a dick for money. I can never go back. Now I am that woman. And it took a really like deep dig into myself to love myself in the midst of a world that doesn't love people who choose
Mm.
to do that.
It makes you feel shame because it's
Mm,
something that we shouldn't do.
right.
I really need you to come back and talk
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I want to ask questions about the sex working thing, and I can't do that today because we're talking about healing today, aren't we?
We
So
are.
yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so you went through a lot of brutal shit, and that was in your 20s, was it?
Sure was.
Mm. So you come out of all of that on your own, right? Did you go for coaching or therapy or something like that to get your head in the right place?
I couldn't go to traditional therapies. It's a great question. Where I found solace and guidance. I was on the bathroom floor crying one day, as we all are. And I looked up at the sky and I was like, you have to help me. And this was at a moment where I really wasn't a God. I wasn't into God. Wasn't That was not part of my life. But that was the instinct that I had to just like look up into the universe and be like, you better help me.
Mm,
And across my path came a woman who is now a high priestess for me. And I just joined her and I started studying under her. And
And
I
when you
began,
say she's a priestess, explain
mm,
what you mean by that.
I think it can mean so many different things. For me, priestessing is in service through reciprocity in divine pride of what you're doing. And that can be doing anything. And so if I applied those three principles to my sex work, everything just started to make sense. I was
Mm.
like, of course, I'm in service to the world in reciprocity with someone else. I'm not a martyr in this work. I'm not a victim in this work. And I have divine pride in that this is beautiful work and I know the value of it. And so applying like those principles of priestessing in the world to this realm that is very misunderstood, that's who really helped me build the confidence. And I don't think I would be having this conversation. I'd probably still be in the shadows if I hadn't met that woman.
Wow. You
So
meant to
now
meet
I'm
her.
fully in it. I'm fully in it. I
When you
no
say you're
longer
fully in it, fully in what?
I no longer have a corporate job. So I am
Ah, right.
fully my sacred sexual healing work, my divine dominatrix work, my temple priestessing work. And last year, because I realized that more people needed to understand how the sexual energy can alchemize wounds, can heal us, is when I founded the School of Erotic Mysteries that really normalizes both light and dark expressions of the erotic as a way to heal. Because the erotic energy for me is medicine.
Mm.
And it's medicine that's your birthright. And it's our body's natural healing mechanisms of moving through a lot of the shit that this world dumps on us. It's just not given that kind of proper place in this world. So that's my
Wow.
long-winded way of saying, how the hell did I get here?
Bloody hell. That, oh, sorry, I shouldn't even have said that. I'll have to cut that out.
Tell me if I can't curse because I'm a New Yorker. So
No, no, no,
sometimes
don't
F-box.
worry. I mean, I don't know. I might not cut it out because that is me, really. I mean, people don't like it. I'm sure people know me by now, to be fair. So what I'm understanding here is that there are two sorts of sex workers. So you're one that heals. You're one that helps them get through whatever it is that they're going through, whatever conditioning they've had, whatever trauma that they've had, whatever is blocking them, whatever is not helping them get the best out of sex they could possibly ever get. Whereas the other ones, they're not teaching anything. They're just surviving, right? That's the difference, right?
Well, and even within the sex worker by choice arena, there's so many different flavors. And I'm usually using the analogy of like different goddess energies. So if you see me in my healing as a healer, a sexual healer, I'm very comfortable in the dark, in the cathartic, in the transmutational. When someone's in deep emotional pain, being able to kind of hold that space so strongly and shepherd them through a very dark moment. There are other sex workers that I just feel are these children of Aphrodite, this like cornucopia of pleasure, right? The humans who help us feel so much more pleasure in our bodies. It's a very different flavor, and there's not a better, there's no hierarchy. It's just what is someone being called to in their life that they would hire someone.
Mm,
The same way that we have different doctors. You don't
yeah,
always need a
yeah,
gynecologist, you don't always need a GP, you don't always
yeah. I
need a
get it.
surgeon, right?
Yeah.
It's a different vibe.
So what I'd like right at the very beginning, you touched on this newly married couple, and
Mm.
you said you helped them. So can you just tell me about them? I mean, have they been together for years and years and years, and they're just, you know, I mean, because a lot of the audience here will be thinking, why would a newly married couple go to a sex worker? Why would they do that? What is it?
I work with so many couples, particularly in the realm of desiring to explore non-monogamy. And people come to me at so many different stages. A lot of them have been in a relationship together for I think the longest was like a 12-year relationship. And I would say, okay, we want to explore this. One of the couples most recently, they've only been together for about a year.
Wow.
But they had such a historical experience with other long-term relationships that were basically sexless. And then they came together, finally they feel the explosion and they just want to keep exploding.
Right, right.
And so I say that there's so much value in hiring a sex worker when you're desiring to explore non-monogamy for a couple of reasons. One is you genuinely have no idea what you're doing. Genuinely, you have no clue. And you have no clue for a couple of reasons. You don't know communication frameworks. You actually don't know how to have these conversations around negotiations, about boundaries, around what your triggers look like. What do you need when you're feeling triggered from your partner? What is the fire escape plan, right? We do fire drills in school. Why don't we do fire drills when we're in emotional
You're
triggered
so
situations?
right.
Right. So there's those sorts of teachings that I guide people through. But then there's also a lot of pain that comes up because we've been conditioned into the quote mononormative, we only have sex with one person. Feelings of jealousy are so tricky to navigate. And what's really helpful in the beginning is to go slowly. And there's a sense that if you just jump into a play party or you go to an orgy with someone, like you're gonna feel the pressure and you're probably gonna do something you don't actually want to do. You're gonna say yes, that your partner is, quote, allowed to do something that you really don't feel comfortable with them doing. And then all of a sudden you're fighting in the car ride home. You're not
Yeah.
talking the next morning. And chances are that's gonna end in a divorce, and you're gonna go to a sex therapist who is probably not going to be able to help so much because they don't understand non-monogamy. Most professionals are not trained in how to navigate polyamorous dynamics. So when you hire a sex worker, there's a real comfort, especially in heteronormative couples, like heterosexual couples who have only been with the other sex, or the opposite sex. I am not here to steal anybody's man. I am not here to love your woman any better. And there's a comfort in that. I'm not here to come in between your relationship. I'm here to build your relationship to be even greater than what it is. That's very different than asking your best friend to have a threesome with you.
Wow. What I'd like you to talk about now, please, if you wouldn't mind,
Mhm.
is what's the process? How does it all work? Like if someone like this couple, take them as an example. They obviously found you, and then what happens after that?
Yeah. I approach sexual healing space very similar to if you're going to sit at a psychedelic retreat, a good one, right? Because there is a preparation time, there is the transformational experience, and then there's the integration time. And all three components of that are really important to someone's emotional and psychological well-being. And it's really easy when you use the psychedelic medicine as the analogy. If you just walk into a place off the street, have one of the most mind-bending experiences of your whole life, and then get thrown back into the world and be like, okay, bye, have fun with that. Like things aren't going to go so well.
Mm.
That's what's happening in my temple space. We are bending our conscious awareness of who we are, what we do, how we hold ourselves, where we could go through erotic expression. And that takes preparation. And so part of the preparation process is I have one of the most extensive sexual activities and BDSM and kink checklists. And it's thorough around experience level, desire level, How hard do you want to experience
So is this
something?
like a questionnaire?
It's a questionnaire
Uh,
that goes into
yeah.
nuance, right? So it's not just a yes, no, maybe. It's a real like finding the nuance of the
Mm.
activity. And what happens during the preparation time is there's a review. I review this checklist, but then I go into understanding the emotions behind why someone wants to experience a certain activity. So I'll give you an example around bondage. Say someone's like checks off, they really want to experience bondage. My follow-up questions are, what are the emotions that make you feel inspired when you say, I want to be bound? Do you want to feel helpless? Do you want to feel restricted?
Oh,
Do you want to
interesting.
feel like a prisoner? Do you want to feel like, do you want to feel afraid? Do you want to feel surrendered? Like, what is the feeling
Mm.
behind the inspiration of, I want to do that thing? Because that's actually more important than I want to be tied up, especially from how I'm holding the space.
Mm.
And so even then, in just this preparation time, they're beginning to understand more of how their erotic nature is actually trying to express, right?
Mm.
When we're in the space, there's no abruptness. There is a languorous, at least 5 hours together.
So can I, before you carry on, when you say
Mhm.
this space, you in a room?
Oh, yes. So
What you?
I
Yeah.
work out of a couple of spaces. So I'm in Los Angeles right now, and I work out of New York City. And there are spaces that I rent out that are perfectly kinky and perfectly sacred. There's there's no like commercial feel to them. You couldn't, from just like being on the street, rent this space. These
No.
are sacred spaces
Wow.
they're here. They're just hidden in plain sight.
Excellent. And so would it be, I mean, describe what the room looks like.
The temple space that I was in yesterday is my favorite place to work out of in Los Angeles. It's a 4-room space with different vibes on each of them. And so the most, I think, recognizable by most kinksters would be the space where there's an A-frame and chain falls for being tied up, being bound to a bench. That's where the sling could go, and bondage to a sling. That's where the St. Andrew's cross is, where someone can get tied up and lots of impact. The spanking bench is there. On the other side of that big room is divided in two. On the other side, there's a full cage. So someone can be caged up, and I can have we can play in that way. There's a large throne for when people are to worship me. And then there's
Oh, when
two
you're
neat,
dominatrix.
yeah, this
Yeah,
is,
right.
hmm
That's
uh,
so interesting.
hmm
When you're describing that, it reminds me of that room for 50 Shades of Grey.
the
That,
difference is there's remember, like, go back to your Catholic days. You ever
yeah,
go to like a nighttime mass where it's just by candlelight?
nope.
No. The aura in the space is more of, you are in holy temple
Right.
space.
Ooh.
The lighting is deep and sultry, and you can feel how the walls of that temple really are like a portal to take you outside of Los Angeles. I mean, you're not in the city anymore. You are in and then you walk out and you're like, wait, I'm in Los Angeles again.
You go through some kind of meditation or process to prepare them in that room. Yeah, you must do. Yeah, you got to get them ready. It's kind of in the right mindset to to absorb this whole room and the atmosphere and the energy and everything. Eh?
Yeah. And what what we do during the on-ramp, you hit it right on the head. I will drop everyone into a very deep meditation where they can finally begin to come back into their bodies. Because even as embodied as we are, when we run through life and we're going through the city like crazy, there's a way that we just get stuck in our head. So there's a real moment and an arc of getting us back into our bodies. Okay, we're fully here. And then only we enter into the negotiation process. Because when you try to negotiate from a mental place, you begin to lose all of your intuitive draws. And what I say in this sexual healing space is when something really calls you, listen to it. Like there's medicine there. And we only can hear the whispers of those calls when we're fully dropped into our body. So then the negotiation process takes usually 45 minutes to an hour. We really are chatting about sexual agreements, especially when I'm working with a couple, finding the nuance. And I will be almost to the point of being annoying around like, no, 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 what about this way versus this way? You know, talking through different expressions of a shared sexual energetic experience because it matters. Like rushing through this process is just such a hindrance.
I
You're only
can
going to regret it on the back end.
I can imagine they have never had any kind of conversation like that ever in their lives. This is like a whole new world to them, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you try to do that, just after, you know, there are plenty of articles out there that are like, you know, guides to a conversation. Until you actually have to form the words and express your desires,
Mm.
manage through disappointment, feel into how you are a resilient human being, and then express your no and manage through what it feels like to disappoint your partner. I mean, it's just a somatic experience that you cannot get anywhere else.
No, that's the thing. Nobody communicates like that. That's why there are so many problems in relationships. I mean, the amount of men, Francesca, the amount of men that write to me every day saying, I want to do a threesome. I want to do cuckolding. My wife doesn't want to do any of it. It's mostly men that contact me. I never get any women contacting me with the same kind of problems. And so, I mean, some women may well be in their menopause where they have no more, you know, the estrogen's gone, so the desire's gone. But there are so many excuses that these women make for these men, and they love their wives so much they stay stuck, and they suppress their own sexuality because they don't want to disappoint their partner, and they're in a marriage where they made their vows and they have to, and it's like it's really sad to see that they can't express themselves as they want to. Okay, so the wife may not want to do things like that, but I got a question in one of my lives. He said, my wife is doubting her sexuality. I said, what do you mean she's doubting? Well, she thinks she may like women. And he said, well, what shall I do? I said, you've got to set her free. You've got to allow her to experiment, because you don't really want a wife that's being trapped in a relationship that she shouldn't be in. And that will make her sad. It won't do you any good or her. He goes, oh, thanks very much. So it's like, that's just one person who felt brave enough to write to me. So yeah, and I imagine, yeah, I'm thinking
My
now.
I'm literally bringing it, it's my, this eye is tearing up because the clients that I work with, particularly in the, well, I'll speak to both what I've noticed in working with both humans assigned male at birth and then humans assigned female at birth, and like how that conditioning has affected how they show up in this space.
Yeah.
So humans assigned male at birth conditioned as men have been told that they can't let down their partner. They can't let them down. You're not allowed to fumble. You're not allowed to
It's
be
a sin,
vulnerable.
isn't it? It's a big sin.
You must, and it's actually really confusing for them because here most humans assigned female at birth presented as women, we're over here being like, we want our men to be more vulnerable. The minute they're vulnerable, we shame them. We actually don't know how to be with a man who is really vulnerable. And I've had so many clients of mine who are married and have tried to tell their partners, have tried to experience this with their partners, and they are just crippled by the judgment that their wives or their partners have given them. And so I know a lot of people are going to have something to say, but I honestly feel like I save marriages
I
by
think you
taking
do.
on
I think you
married
do.
clients.
You know, it's a shame because I said to one of these men, you've got to tell your wife how you feel. He says, no, I've already done that. And she threw it back in my face. I'm like, oh, that poor man.
Yeah. What I've noticed in working with humans assigned female at birth, when it comes to the erotic, there's been a way that women have been conditioned to manage the experiences of everybody else and not for ourselves. And so when they see someone expressing desires in the realm of the erotic, it actually like stirs up all of the ways they either don't know what they desire because they've never done that exploration, or they don't have the capacity in their throat to actually ask for it because they've never asked for what they want.
Exactly.
It's a huge worthiness wound. And so when I have women journeying through my school of erotic mysteries, what happens most often is because I'm normalizing a lot of kinky expressions. And when they start to see what's actually possible out there, they start to say like, oh my God, that turned me on. I can't believe that turned me on. I
That's
can't
amazing,
believe
isn't
that
it?
turned me on. Yeah. Yeah. I love it especially women who want to explore their dominance. That's always fun. And they say, like, you started talking about cock and ball torture. I can't believe I got turned on thinking about kicking someone in the balls. And I was like, it's one of the hottest things in the world.
Amazing. I bet you get those men that like to have nappies on as if they're a baby.
I love my diaper boys. I love dirty mommy play. I do a lot of fringe dirty mommy play. Oh, I'm like, that's some of the hottest play.
No.
Yeah, I get really dark.
But listen, it's coming to the end now. So what I'd like to ask you is that if anybody wants to contact you to go to your temple, to go to your school of mystery, I'd like you to say it so that the people listening will know how to contact you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. So my work is vast, and if you are ready, if you're ready
Have to
to
be ready,
begin
right?
turning towards the erotic as the medicine that it is to allow it to be the transformational power for you, then you are welcome to go to my website, priestessfrancesca.com, and you'll see in there the School of Erotic Mysteries, which is a body of wisdom teachings that come from the depths of my work out in the world, dissolving a lot of these dissolutions of what the erotic is and really allowing for you to figure it out for yourself. What is it? What is the medicine for you? Making very proper place for both light and dark expressions, right? The rainbows and butterflies transcendent sex, and then the kinky dark underbelly sexual expressions. It's all perfect. It's all beautiful for me. And if you're like, yes, I actually want to get into temple space, I am ready to throw myself into the deep end, then there's places where you can book a call with me. You can send a chat in that chat function. I'll get back to you and we'll start to see what's actually within the boundary of possibilities. It's a
You just
beautiful to be in.
you were just saying that you go into special rooms in Los Angeles and in New York, but let's say somebody from the UK would like to, do you do it? Do you do things over Zoom? I mean, how does it work that way?
Yes, I have a lot of virtual clients, and I heard your introduction so many times on this podcast about like the super conscious. When we are in virtual space together, we are moving into a play space that goes into the astral plane. That's how I experience it. My soul meets your soul, and we come together even though we're not in physical time together. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful work. I don't think it's diluted at all. And I will be really honest with you, I do have people who adore me so much that they do fly me to them. So
Wow. Incredible. Yeah, I know what you mean about being on Zoom and connecting, because I do all my work on Zoom, and you do get that connection. I feel that connection. I can use my intuition on
Mhm.
people, and they use it on me. Although they don't know they can use it, they use it and they go, "Oh my God." And when you tell them that you are absolutely correct, they go, "Oh my God." See, there is that connection. One other thing I wanted to ask you, you've got a code called Explode, haven't you, that people could use?
I do, yes. The School of Erotic Mysteries is currently open for registration for the summer solstice container. And that code will actually get you 10% off even the early bird pricing just for the listeners of your podcast. So
Oh, that's
very,
amazing. So
very
everybody
exciting.
use Explode. It goes well with Explosion, doesn't it? So listen, thank you so much for that. My last question I ask everybody is, if you
Mhm.
were able to meet the young 18-year-old you again, what would you advise?
Hmm. Regardless of what they say, your gifts need to be administered.
Excellent.
Mm,
Wise words.
mm.
Okay, there you go, everybody. What an amazing conversation. Thank you so, so much, Francesca. I've learnt loads. I'm sure the audience has learnt loads. Another exciting conversation. So listen, everybody. So my link tree is written up here if you can see it. It's linktr.ee/Caroline Chenier for all my social media links. So listen, thank you. Thank you very much, Francesca, for your time and talking to
Thank you
us.
so much. Thank you so much. I'm so
Absolute
appreciative.
pleasure. Thank you for listening and taking the time to tune in. I love you all. See you all next time. To your success, I'm out.